Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, welcome to the Courageous Leadership Series. I can't believe we're up to episode 6 already. This episode is going to be focused on relationship mastery. My name's Mandy Holloway. I'm the co-founder of Courageous Leaders. I'm looking forward to spending the next 45 minutes with you to explore our topic, which is how to build the skills to give and receive honest feedback. As most of you would know, if you've been following along with the episodes, that what we're looking at now is relationship mastery. We looked in the first 4 episodes at self-mastery and how you could be authentic, courageous, congruent, and passionate. Now we're looking at relationship mastery and how you bring that self-mastery to the relationships you have with the people that work within your business and even your customers and your suppliers. So we're very much focused today on how to build the skills to give and receive, and the word is honest feedback. And as I've said before, really would love to engage with you guys. So ask and share. Ask questions if you need more information, and also share stories and insights. And we've got various social media that you can reach out and connect with us, and I'll refer back again to that a little later. So let's have a look and put in context what the feedback conversation is all about. So you would have seen in episode 4, we talked about the difference between managing and leading. And I talked about the managing conversations that were absolutely essential to ensure you had quality, productivity, satisfied clients or customers, and they were going to be the conversations you had when you were managing people. So it all started with delegating, which we looked in episode 2. We then looked in our last episode around how to support people, how to get them feeling significant, feeling like you really care about them so they are bringing their best. Well, the next important conversation that you have in that leverage cycle when you're managing people, managing tasks, is to give and also to receive feedback. I know from my experience of working with many business leaders that this is probably one of the worst executed conversations because we're not sure how people are going to receive it. We don't actually know how to give it constructively. We've probably all had poor experiences in either giving feedback or receiving feedback. So it's one of those conversations we sort of slip under the carpet and we hope maybe we don't really have to have them. Now, I'm going to define feedback in terms of the leverage cycle concept of a feedback conversation. Some of you might find this a little challenging. It might not align with your present context or concept of what feedback is. So stick with it and let's really challenge ourselves that feedback is describing others' behaviours and outcomes achieved in order to reinforce positive progress or to be constructive and assist in the future development of the person. And it's all about replaying what they did and what they achieved in a specific situation. And it's describing the impact it had on you, the outcome, and the team, only if you personally witnessed the impact on the team. Now, I'm going to say to you that last part around the impact, very few people have incorporated that into their concept of what feedback is. And I think there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's a bit scary, because then what I'm actually doing is I'm owning the feedback. So many managers, when they're giving feedback, use the royal we. And because they're trying to depersonalize it, right? Feedback is a personal conversation. And it's interesting, there's a client that I work with, we have a lot of different cultures in the organisation. So there's Italians and Brazilians and Germans and Aussies and Brits. And so a very global organisation. And I had a chap from, he was from a Dutch background, and he came up and he said, Mandy, I'm really confused about you Australians. He said, you always say don't take things personally. Now, don't take this personally. He said, what does that mean? And I started laughing, and there's actually, and I'll make sure we put it up on the experts page, there's actually an article from Harvard which shows the different ways in the different nationalities how people give feedback and receive feedback, and how in the Netherlands it can be a lot more blunt. In Australia we sort of pussyfoot around it. In the UK we're never direct, we're all very polite and very gentlemanly in the way we give feedback, and therefore it becomes quite confusing into how to receive it. And so this whole thing about don't take it personally is because in Australia we have very much an avoidance culture around not necessarily wanting to be real. Whereas, say in the Netherlands, it's probably much more of an oppositional type. So we'll be very critiqued and critiquing and very blunt. And so it becomes quite interesting to have a look at the concept we have around feedback. And particularly if you have more of a global workforce, that becomes a challenge into how people give feedback and, importantly, how they receive it. But the important thing is about owning the impact of it and making it personal, because it is personal. And it's also really important to differentiate, and some small businesses may have them, some not, but you may have got people to come and work with you that have come from large businesses. Feedback is not a performance review, and it's not a performance appraisal. It's not about appraising performance to say whether you're rated 1, rated 5. What you're doing is sharing the impact that that person's choices to not deliver the outcome on time and to choose a certain behaviour and attitude is having on you. And then it's their decision to go away and decide what they want to do with that feedback. And I think that's a really interesting concept, and one we're going to explore in a lot more depth today. Because I think for many of us when we're leading, when we think we give somebody feedback, we expect them to change straight away. And we particularly want them to fix themselves and do it the way I want them to do it. And that's not what feedback is about. So we're going to have a look at that in just a moment. I want us to refer back to the concept and the framework that we've used on numerous episodes, is that we definitely want to be in that open space. We want to be in the space where we're sharing and we're being very real. And feedback is one of those conversations that enables us to shift into that high-performing space. And not having feedback, real feedback, very open and honest feedback, will hold us back in that space of either in the facade where we're norming, or where we've got blind spots and we're in the storming stage. And many business teams, I see them oscillating between those because they're not prepared to give real feedback. So I'm going to share with you, I've just said to you that, feedback isn't about fixing someone. Let me explain what I mean around that. Is that, let me just grab this one. Is that, and you've seen this diagram several occasions, but I'm going to bring a different bent to it this time. This is going to be a very real bent around the feedback conversation, and it will link to what you've been asked to do in each of the episodes. So one of the things to be very aware of is that feedback brings awareness. Feedback drives you to become more aware of the impact you're having on someone, the impact you've had on the team, the impact you've had on the outcome. What it doesn't do is bring acceptance. And it definitely does not bring action. So what I'm going to explain to you is that in my experience, people give feedback expecting people to walk away from that conversation and take action. And they do that because, and the next episode that we're going to have a look at is we're going to have a look at the coaching conversation, which is the last conversation in that leverage cycle. Because the coaching conversation is a conversation that enables action. The feedback conversation enables awareness. And you cannot combine the two conversations because people need space and time to accept the feedback. And if you remember in the episode on managing and leading, which was episode 4, I introduced you to the Kubler-Ross change cycle. When you give feedback to somebody, it is like imposing change on them because suddenly they're recognizing that you don't see them possibly the way they see themselves. Or maybe they do see themselves that way, but they've been in a little bit of denial and they're trying not to do that. So what you'll often see is when you give people feedback, they can go into denial, they can blame you, they can justify why they did what they did, they can get angry. If it's positive feedback, they can still go into denial and go, oh no, I wasn't really that good. Or they could be incredibly happy and excited with the feedback. But there's still a gap between them actually receiving that feedback and creating awareness for themselves and being able to accept the feedback and be prepared to take action. So one of the things you're going to hear me say in the next episode is you cannot coach somebody who doesn't want to be coached. They have to come willingly to receive coaching because they have accepted that they've got a development need. And the only way they can accept they've got a development need is if you've created awareness. Or you've created the awareness of what they're doing really well and they have to accept and come to action to say, but how can I keep repeating that? What does that mean? How do I continue to stretch myself? So that's a really important foundation piece to understand what feedback really is. And when we're giving, when there's 2 elements to feedback, and I'm going to run through with you how to receive feedback, but then also very importantly, how to give feedback. Now, you're going to find if you go to the experts page, and I'll give you all the details later in the session, there'll be a direct link to our website. And what I'm going to be talking about, you will actually be able to download checklists. We've got blogs. I wrote a series of blogs at the end of last year that actually went through and guided people through how to give feedback and how to receive feedback. And one of the things I say to people with feedback is you can talk about it till the cows come home. I can give you checklists. It's one of those skills that you actually, the terminology I use is you've got to actually feel it in the bones. You've actually got to go out there and do it and experience it and rattle your cage. And there is nothing natural about giving feedback or receiving feedback. And I think if you accept that, and know that, and I've had years of training in this, and when I'm going to go and give somebody feedback, I can still feel my heart pump, and going, oh my gosh, how is this going to go? Because you're actually dealing with a human being and you don't know how they're going to react. And you've got to take the time and invest the emotional energy into preparing. And you cannot have these conversations just by winging them in the moment on the fly.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.